Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone's good. It's not actually been that long since we last spoke, because obviously I was live on Thursday. And to be honest with you, I know the market's moved up and down, but we're pretty much at the same price we were on Thursday. And I think it's kind of just a sign of where we are in terms of just some of the levels we're going to look at later on, and maybe some big news events we got this week. The market's just trying to tread water, waiting for the next news announcement, and suddenly we are still in a bit of a news-driven environment for which way we're going. So that's great for me. It doesn't really mean there's too much to go over tonight, and given that it's a cuddle weekend and I haven't done my presentation slides, it just means I'm going to buy myself some more time. So we'll get through everything as not necessarily as quick as we can, but we'll get through everything. There's just not as much to go through. I didn't get any advanced questions, which will shorten things, but obviously, as always, if you've got any questions, then just feel free to drop them in the chat, and yeah, we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump straight in, and we'll cover these standard charts first, and then we'll have a tiny bit of news just to kind of bring some context to the title of the talk, and then we'll get into our usual Bitcoin and altcoins. So as you can kind of see with the big Bitcoin chart across the top, remember these are 3-day candles here. So you look back 7 days ago, we were at 94.5. We kind of had a little bit of a move up in the last hour, but we were around about 94.5 an hour ago, and we've not really done much. I will say that this 3-day candle is looking a little bit better, potentially a little low test within there, but we are still running ourselves into resistance here at 95.7, that white line that's drawn, which is kind of like on the 3-day time frame, a good indication of support and resistance. So we haven't managed to break and support above that one at the moment. 5 hours to go on this candle. We will cross our fingers we can do it. But then again, we haven't fallen below 92.5 either. So we're just sort of trapped in that area. And I'm going to have a look at sort of like rises, levels, etc. later on. But I think it's probably fair to say that on the daily and the 4 hour, we're in a consolidation period, awaiting the next move up. Bitcoin dominance, I know it's always in the corner, you can never see it, but this one is just has no chill, continuing to climb up. We actually made a new relatively local all-time high, that makes sense, of about 65, well, it was 65%. I'm going to go on to Bitcoin dominance a little bit later on, but this one hasn't really slowed down. And with the exception of Tau, which I know most of us are very largely invested in at the moment, that's why our altcoins in general are struggling. And despite all the positive things that have happened with Tau over the last 5 weeks, it has had a bit of a bad start to 2025. Nice to see the recovery, but with Bitcoin dominance like this, it just goes to show why the altcoin market is currently struggling. And then this again, we talked about this on Thursday, that actually when you look at total market cap 3, so minus Bitcoin and Ethereum, we're still in that downtrend, and we're talking about this double bottom that, if you remember on Bitcoin, the double bottom played out and it's punched through, got through that neckline. Well, look on this one here, my lines are wiggly because I've zoomed in. You can actually see it's a very clear rejection now of that kind of neckline area falling down. It's a further lower high. Who knows where this may go? But again, Bitcoin dominance continuing to rise, suggesting that actually, unless we kind of see some turnaround, this is likely to continue falling. Hopefully not a retest of 700 billion down there. We'll have a look at actual price targets potentially a little bit later on, but makes me a little bit more skeptical on altcoins and whether or not we're really seeing the start of an alt season. Now, the thing about alt seasons is they can just turn around like that. So don't write it off yet, but it's just something to be cautious about as we're thinking about our portfolios and where we're going with everything. It's something that I will be talking about a bit more in detail on Saturday for those of you that do come to the cuddle. So for those that can't make it, it is recorded now. I'm sure it'll come out a little bit later on. And then BitTensor. Oops, that's not BitTensor. BitTensor. Now, these are these lines I've had on for a while, and actually I thought last week or last Thursday, whenever it was, we might actually have a sort of a move to break through that. But actually, you can kind of see we're just struggling to get over this sort of horizontal line here. Probably could have originally drawn it here. Maybe we can draw it a little bit neater. I think it must have been drawn on the daily. But anyway, that's sort of the general consensus. You can kind of see, may not touch it exactly. We'll have to line it up on the daily later on. but it is starting to struggle to get through there. Don't write it off just yet, because again, may just be a consolidation period, and I'm not sidestepping, I'm not jumping out of tower at the moment. I have some levels in my mind. If it did get down as far as that, I might consider a sidestep. But right now, after such a strong move, and as I mentioned on Thursday, it has doubled its value in the last 4 weeks. It's going to need a time to breathe. So that's absolutely fine. Would I have felt better had it been sort of consolidating above that resistance line? Of course I would. But as long as we can kind of still keep him touching distance within that, and again, a decent candle so far at the moment for today, just really want to see how that one closes. And this one is bucking the altcoin trend. I don't think I have, let's put coin market cap up, sorry, just excuse me. Last 7 days, BitTenser is down here, but now on the last 7 days, actually down a little bit, but you look at it on the last 30 days, I don't have 2 weeks on here. And we are 5th at 94%. So this thing is bucking the altcoin trend, which is great to see. Let me just go back to where we were. Anyway, we'll digest all of that a little bit later on. But for us, it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag there, because we have, well, for me, quite heavily in Bitcoin. So some decent consolidation with Bitcoin dominance rising gives me hope that actually we've got potential for a move forward. Obviously got another fairly healthy chunk within BitTenser, which again, because it's outperforming most other altcoins at the moment, that's actually doing well. I'm not in the subnet plays. I think we've covered that over the last 2 weeks. But with the rest of the altcoins, which is now quite a small portion of my portfolio, about 30% for the rest of the altcoins, they're just treading water, being down on the year, if I'm being honest. And yeah, it's a nervy time for them, but just staying the course of the small allocations in projects that, hopefully should do well. Always the optimistic terminology there. Hopefully it'll do well. Anyway, hello everyone. Sorry I didn't mention that earlier on. Let's jump into tiny bit of news. And the whole point of what I'm saying, if you read the description, and no one ever does because I never read them either, about, is Bitcoin finding a further leg of legitimacy? That's, I suppose, the point I'm trying to make. We all know that Bitcoin's great. We have also seen that institutions have bought on immensely now they've been able to with ETFs behind Bitcoin. We know that America's talking the talk about a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but actually we're starting to see a few countries now actually really looking like they want to move towards that. And I hesitantly say that with the United States because, it's been 3 months, 4 months nearly now since Trump's been in. I appreciate these things get time. The Loomis Act, the Bitcoin Act, the buying 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years, it's not gone away by any means. We're not really hearing any updates about that at the moment. I imagine just the size of the organization or the governmental departments has to get through is just going to slow that down. But we are starting to see some others. And so, we may write off countries like Kyrgyzstan, if I pronounce that one correctly. But the fact of the matter is that, in another article, Pakistan, last month, they appointed CZ as their crypto advisor. What do you think he's got out and done? He's gone and told them to buy BTC and BNB. Pakistan, not exactly a small nation. We've got other nations on board here, which he's gone out to try and help. And we've actually got, not that one. Okay, I'm trying to remember what his name is now. Richard Teng, the new CEO of Binance, going out to other companies and advising them that actually the strategic Bitcoin reserve is the way forward. A number of them have actually started to suggest that that's something they would be interested in, but we haven't seen actual action within that. But I think the fact that we've even been able to have these news articles reported is just kind of starting to show that maybe a lot of people are worried that America is going to approve it, so they want to try and just get their ducks in a row, so if that happens, they can launch straight into it. It's sad to see, unfortunately, that the United States announced earlier this week, might be the end of last week actually, that they ain't going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve. It's just not right for them at the moment. But they are going down the lines of, moving forward with regulating the cryptocurrency industry, which Some people will say they hate that. I think I'm actually for that. If I'm honest with you, I think it's probably time we need to just get that sorted and round up. I don't know what that's going to mean for us as retail going forward. Hopefully it's going to help us and not hinder us. But yeah, the UK not interested in a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I can't remember off the top of my head how much BTC we currently own. It's in the tens of thousands, I believe. But it would be nice if we actually were forward thinking like that and were able to develop it further. Anyway, that is unfortunately where it goes. I didn't bother bringing up the news articles, but we've seen that MasterCard are starting to set up so that you can work with stable coins within their ecosystem, which again, MasterCard, they're basically the size of a country themselves anyway. We are starting to see that. I think for me, the biggest nation I want to see is actually China. Now, China have that massive love-hate relationship with Bitcoin. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, and it's currently off at the moment. But whenever they decide to turn that around, and they seem to change their mind about every cycle anyway, we're just going to see, I think, a huge amount of liquidity flowing back into the markets, which again, that's what we need. We still believe, we still have this idea in our head that Q4 is going to be sort of the end of the market, but the problem is we're in Q2, we're halfway through Q2 actually, and we're only at about $3 trillion. So for those of us that thought we might get to 9, 10, 11, 12 trillion dollars by the end of this bull run, that is going to take nation states to actually flood the markets with liquidity in that short a time. Yes, last cycle we went from like 1 trillion to 3 trillion. That's $2 trillion. We're now talking about going from 3 trillion to us go on the lower end. 9 trillion, 6 trillion additional dollars need to come in. That's 3 times the amount that we saw in 2021 when we were giving out stim checks all the time. So that's a really big ask at the moment. Retail ain't going to be finding that down their sofas. We're going to be looking for big countries, hopefully like China, to sign in. So the fact that we are starting to see news articles about, granted, smaller countries than China, they're looking to go down that route. We just need to now get that next pull of legitimacy, really start to get some of those bigger nations, and I mean those bigger economic nations signing in. But we can just wait and see on that one there. Having a look back at Bitcoin's price on a bit of a smaller time scale at the moment. So the usual chart we always start off with, 12-hour time frame. It's got a fib levels on there, which date back to last year, but they've worked out really well in just keeping them on the chart. And then the yellow boxes are that sort of liquidity level. And this is where you can really see we haven't done much. We've not really done anything in the last 2 weeks, I would argue, since that move up. Now, that ain't a bad thing. When we talk quite regularly about market maker theory, this is a classic example of a consolidation period where price is just ranging within a period over a given amount of time, just allowing sort of the market to reset, market makers to move however they need it to before they take that next move within to the market. And we've been working off, on the daily time frame, this is a 12-hour, I know, but sort of like this is the W formation, which would mean that this move up, you could argue, was one, although it's kind of short on a daily time frame, if I'm honest. Then we'd have another move up, and then this is just a very similar flat consolidation period, consolidation 2 there, which would actually mean, and we will do this on a vector chart a little bit later on, that we should get at some stage another move back up. Now, on the daily time frame, I'm more inclined to actually, just because, hey, I want this to last longer, that being one. Yeah, that's the one, and this is the consolidation period. And so we've actually potentially got 2. But when we go on the lower time frames, it does look like we're actually probably getting into that third stage. Moving away from where we are in terms of levels, and just generally having a look, it's a 618. It's another level. It's a Fibonacci 618 level, and that's just what we've been knocking in and around of. Yes, we managed over the weekend with low volume to actually climb quite nicely above it. I think we almost got to 98,000. And if you remember on Thursday, we were talking about, can we make that move up to 99,000 before we find that rejection and it comes back down. And unfortunately, we got down to about 93, just over. It's like 93.3 earlier on today. But as I said, we've had that real strong move in the last couple of hours, taking us back up to 95,000. And this is just classic pre-FOMC sort of moves where the market really isn't positioned itself, isn't really doing anything because it is awaiting what is going to come out. Now, jumping ahead of ourselves, and we'll come back to this, but just because I've mentioned FOMC, as I say, they meet today and then they finalize everything tomorrow. And then at 7 p.m., I think it is 7 p.m. UK time, we will get the latest federal rate. It currently is 4.25 to 4.50, and there is a 97% chance that the rate is going to remain the same. So it's chances are the market have priced that in. Now, if we get a rate cut, surprise rate cut as it's going to be, ka-ching, we're going to see some movements. We're going to see some fireworks. And I do believe not just the crypto market, but the traditional market is going to take that news very well. But 97% chance that actually it's going to remain the same. And I think what we're going to then see is the usual shenanigans. It'll probably drop, it'll recover, it'll drop in that whole 30-minute window before Jerome Powell comes onto the stage, coughs a lot, and then starts to talk. And that's where the real focus is going to be, is what is it that he has to say? Is he going to be hawkish? Is he going to be dovish? He's probably going to sit on the fence like he always does. And you're really going to have to try and pick apart the words within his statement to try and get an idea of where it is. I'm sure he'll say that he's been driven by the data and they just need more of it. I mean, we've need so much data in the last 9 or 10 months. I'm not sure what else he really needs. And so for me, actually, once he's finished his spin doctor 5-10 minute statement, it's actually the questions and how he responds to those. So around about sort of like 7:40 time, we may get an idea of actually what might be happening. If it is a rate freeze and we're not getting a cut, I imagine a lot of the questions are going to be focused about when may we see a cut, what kind of information does he now need to see? Are we close to it? How many rate cuts are we going to get this year? And will they just be at 25 basis points, or can we see larger ones? It'll be stuff like that. Just people trying to fish out where it is, try and provide that information and that, I suppose, confidence that there's back in the market. Because despite all of this, the real thing that is driving that fear in the market at the moment, it is still the talks of the tariffs. And, you know, we are still getting knocked around by the talks of the tariffs, in the sense of we have Trump coming out saying, yeah, we're going to give you some news about the tariffs, but we're not really too bothered about some minor nation that's 147th in the economic scale and what that is. What we really want to understand is, what is the tariff situation, mainly with China, and if we were going to take China out of it, Canada and Mexico. But China's the big one that's really kind of holding things up, as I understand it today, but trust me, it changes all the time. There's no intention of any discussions between President Trump and China, this week, which just goes to show that, again, we're going to have that nervousness across the market. Now, this could just be a classic bait and switch from Trump. He's done it plenty of times in the last 8 weeks of just pretending nothing's happening and then drop some good news when he can. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting one. I really think we're going to be getting 4.25 no rate cut tomorrow. I think the market's kind of expecting that. It's been at 97% for quite a significant amount of time, if I'm honest. And so I don't think we're going to see any major collapse of the market after everything settles down. But obviously, I've just commentated, cursed that one. So you might want to hedge yourself with a short going through. Coming back onto this, the other thing to look at really from the chart point of view is, what is the most logical move that needs to be made? Now, we're still stuck in this range. We've got a liquidation sort of hotspot down at 91.5, which, there wasn't really an interest in driving it down there. Today we came down, but that 93 was defended very well, to be honest. And again, moving up to 98,000, there was no real urgency to try and have a go at that 100,000 level. And so we are, unfortunately, at a 50-50 level. And if anything, tomorrow, maybe we get a flash crash. I don't know. But I would be more surprised that we're just going to probably end up with what you call a spinning top kind of candle. We've got a long wick to the north, long wick to the south, and we've just got a smaller body in the middle. And then come sort of 8 o'clock when the markets have made their minds up, or maybe we have to wait till Asia opening, sort of later into the early hours of the morning, we'll start to see that move go forward. In terms of the actual market itself, fear and greed building up quite nicely again. I mean, we've had 2 weeks of steadiness in the 90s, and that's just brought that confidence back for retail and crypto traders. The fear and greed now sitting at 59, which I think is pretty strong, to be fair. I do worry, I'll be honest, that, and we're going to look at those levels, I promise you, when we get onto Bitcoin chart, there are some levels sub 90, which I think we could reasonably go down to without it ruining any kind of structure. And I think a move below 90, a sharp move below 90, is probably going to bring that greed candles crashing down, at least past the neutral 50 level and into the 40s, if not lower. So we're just, it's so easy for us to get excited and build back up, but it is all a house of cards in terms of the emotions of the market at the moment. And they can just be our legs can be taken away from us before we even know it. So as much as I like where the fear and greed index is going, I could just change, unfortunately, like that. And I don't think there's anything we can really build from it. We're not in an area where we need to be concerned that we've been too greedy for too long, just in sort of that neutral side coming out into the greed. Now, one thing that does make me happy is the Bitcoin ETF inflows, and they are inflows. I mean, if you look on the right-hand side, barring one day over the last 3 weeks, we have had net positive inflows. Granted, the vast majority of those have been BlackRock that have just found a massively new appetite for buying Bitcoin. And in the last, I don't think it works it out. I'm going to have to try and do some mental arithmetic. Let's just call that 12, 15, 18, it's 2, 3, 3.5, 4. Let's just call that about $4.3 billion worth of Bitcoin that has been bought in the last, 2.5 weeks, which is just wild. Really, they've really found that that's where that they want to rekindle that. And if you remember on Thursday, I showed you the BlackRock balance, and it was at 588. I think it was about here, 588. Can't quite get it exactly. We have gone an extra 4 days, 5 days, and we're now at 614,000. They bought another 25,000 Bitcoin in the last week, which is, an incredible amount, really. New all-time highs in terms of their holding, not in terms of the actual value of their portfolio. But our canary is well and truly singing in the coal mine. So from that point of view, I don't think there's any concerns that we need to be getting out of the markets. I do want to just go back and touch on Bitcoin dominance. Now, this is Bitcoin dominance on the weekly time frame. So we've actually kind of got 2017 all the way up to present day. I'll get rid of these EMAs at the moment. I don't think they're helping right now. And we can kind of see, as you would expect, from the turnaround of the bottom of the bear market in November, December 2022, it's been on a steady rise up. But actually, over the last, I'd say, year, really since the ETFs have started, we've, barring one pullback, which happened in an alt season at the end of November, beginning of December, all we've really seen is just a steady increase of Bitcoin dominance, and far exceeding a lot of levels that, including myself, were talking about would be possible. I mean, for a time, I was really thinking that I think it was down here, 53 was going to be the capped level around here. We bust through that. We kept on climbing. We had that nice correction, which was down to a 50 EMA. And then I've been talking about that 64 level from that spike. And actually, not only did we hit that 2 weeks ago, we've now continued to surpass it. And the question on all of us is, well, for alt season to start, Bitcoin dominance has to go down. That can't happen any other way, really. For alt seasons to do what they do, they have to outperform Bitcoin. And outperform Bitcoin, even if Bitcoin is flying up to 1 million, altcoins need to outperform that. Bitcoin dominance will drop. And so the question is, well, where can that turn around? What levels could we potentially look at now for that to turn around that? Now, you could argue this little green line kind of represents where we are at the moment. There's potential at this level. We can kind of see, if I can actually put a horizontal line where it actually is now. There is some sort of price action in and around here. I think it's fairly weak, probably stretching a little bit. as it's just a little bit of action in around the early times of 2020. We all know kind of what happened around there. So for me, actually, the thing that I'm looking at is that 2 times on this chart, we have seen Bitcoin peak, as in Bitcoin's price and Bitcoin dominance peak. And they've been at the peak of each of the 2 previous bull markets. I'll take that one with a pinch of salt because some of you are going to correct me in a second. And that is here. So in December of 2017. And then we had it in the beginning of beginning of January 2021, which wasn't the peak of the market, I accept, but we know in April of 2021, we got to that 64,000. I appreciate November we got slightly higher, but altcoins were doing their thing there. But we can have a look at those 2 peaks there. Now, what level were those 2 at once we get rid of the crosses? Maybe that's unfortunately the level that we are going to be heading towards. And we're kind of looking at around about 71%. That actually looks like a lot more of a logical level to have a look, to stuttering there, to now aim for. The other thing that happened in sort of middle of May 2019, we had that mini Bitcoin run. Have I got a Bitcoin chart that will go like, let's just bring this up weekly. Didn't need that. So this run here in 2019, from the bottom of the 2018 bull market, we had that run up from 3,000 to 14,000 before dropping off. That is this run up here. So again, round about 70% is where it turned around. And so whilst the rate in which Bitcoin dominance is climbing does still say to me that we need a screen back at some stage. We need a pullback. It's screaming a pullback at some stage. It's just going too green for too long without some significant pullback. Actually, the real turning point, if we're looking for targets on here, I'd be looking around that 70% level. Now, is it going to hit 70% exactly? Yeah, probably not. So we could maybe just box it off and be like, this would be the level I'd be looking at. So somewhere in and around there, which is still 4-5% away. 4-5% is an enormous amount in terms of BTC. And in terms of what that's going to do to your altcoins versus BTC, it's going to stretch your portfolio. And that's why I still am decently proportioned allocated within BTC, just awaiting an actual turnaround collapse and move. Now, when these collapses happen, they happen fast. So I accept if I don't time this right, I'm going to miss out on potentially all the gains of whatever it is from now to wherever it goes and turns around. I could lose just in its fast move back down. And I accept that. And so I've got to be thinking about how I want to position myself. And I talked on Thursday about I actually do have some levels with Tau versus BTC that actually I want to start to target and just start to slowly DCAing back in. Because a lot of the sales that I did back in January were just to BTC from the likes of Tau and other altcoins. And so just moving those back seemed like a good time to do it, to try and maximize that. It may still see some further falling, but that's where it's going. But that for me is actually now, it has to be a new target to have a look at. And I just wonder, Bitcoin dominance, weekly time frame. Sorry, I know this is going to look a bit messy, but I mean, there's an unclaimed vector at 68.5, nearly 69. This one here, so in terms of how we look at vectors being sort of magnets towards price action, there is legitimacy in that kind of range just based off the vectors as well that we can see. So the growth has been, now looking at this, fairly steady, going up on the weekly time frame. But on the weekly here, there is actually a vector at sort of 69,000. So that again kind of sort of just gives a little bit more of this kind of level here, and then maybe we see it just spike a little bit higher. We'll have to wait and see. But that's certainly where I'd be looking at a more logical turning around, Bitcoin taking 70% of the market. Now, we've talked about this for the last 2 years or year and a half. It is a different market now. We don't know that the 4-year cycle and the 4-year alt cycle is going to continue because we have the ETFs. So, all that money that has come into the market, or the vast majority of the money that has come into the market over the last 12 months and has created this move up, has just gone into Bitcoin because it's ETFs buying it. I know, granted, Grayscale sold a fairly large chunk, but you have a look at where everything started, and I think we're still net. It's not this chart; it must be another chart. We're still net in the hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, above what Grayscale has sold. So all of that has just gone into BTC, which they're not messing around with altcoins. Not that we know of anyway. We know they've just bought the Bitcoin. Sound like my dad there. They bought Bitcoin, and they're stuck with it. And that is the fly in the soup, isn't it? Because we don't actually know if then we will actually see a major correction. We're basing it off previous experience because that's the right thing to do until it's proven wrong. Then we have this correction, and that retail get in and retail start moving the money because they've got bigger pockets. Not bigger pockets. They've got a bigger desire to make more money out of altcoins, and so that just sort of snaps the Bitcoin dominance, takes it back down. But with such big players buying that, and I'm not even talking about governments at the moment, I'm just talking about ETFs, is that going to do it? And I still stand by the fact that Ethereum ETF is doing nothing. I mean, nothing. Look at it, in terms of difference, 4.5 billion BlackRock spent in the last 3 weeks on Bitcoin, and here they've spent 120 because they're a sell, 120 million. So we're not talking about the same kind of machine here. There doesn't seem to be that interest. So I think we've got to bear that in mind, how that's going to impact total market cap, how that's going to impact how that filters down to altcoins. We're still working on that 4-year cycle as being what's going to happen. But if it doesn't happen this time, then you've got a fairly good indication as to why that is. And I know there are a lot of other, it's like about 100 ETFs being filed at the moment. None of those are going to get approved in the time frame that is required to turn that around inside what we're working on the 4-year cycle before the end of this year. So they're not going to, institutions may love every other altcoin bar Ethereum, but they're not going to have the opportunity to work on that. It's very unlikely that they are. Maybe one or two might get through. I've not really been keeping track of them, but I don't think any of anywhere near close to getting through. So if institutions are still dictating the liquidity entering the market, they're only interested in Bitcoin, which kind of suggests that actually dominance is unlikely to get down to 40%. Just think how much money retail are going to have to put in to not only match what institutions are bringing in buying Bitcoin, but also surpass that. I don't know what it's going to be to the magnitude of, but to get it from 65% down to 40%, that's a lot. So yeah, we need to think about that in how we're going forward. But we'll, as long as things like Tau are bucking the trend in terms of performance against BTC, that's fine. We know that wasn't the case for Tau earlier on this year, and it may not last. Anyway, that is that. Anything else I want to talk about there? Don't think so. Mark put job figures were pretty strong. The Fed has no reason for shock cut yet. Wasn't unemployment last week came out? It was like 10% higher than expected as well. It's a lot of confusing data, actually. Conflicting, I suppose. And I know some people have been chatting in Discord about the debt ceiling and how the United States will never allow the debt ceiling to default. I don't think that's actually newsworthy. I think we've known that for the last 50 years. Every time the debt ceiling's been raised, it's never not been raised. So, yeah, we knew that they were going to find a way to approve it. And I swear, I mean, maybe I'm just imagining it, that just after Trump had got in again, something was passed to make sure that actually for the next 4 years, the debt ceiling isn't a problem. Maybe it's 2 years. It's not a problem. We don't need to keep on raising, we don't need to struggle about raising it. We've got either like a blank check to just continually do it rather than having to go to the houses and get that sorted. But maybe I made that one up. I'm not too sure. And then Mark's put, would make sense that BTC dominance gets back to them previous highs. Yeah, I think it is. And now we're getting close to it. It just seems logical. Like, why didn't we think that that's how it was going to be? You know, we can't look at 2015 before because there weren't enough alts. 2017 or 16, 17 were when, you know, we suddenly moved away from 100 alts to 1,000, 2,000 alts, and we suddenly could have that breakaway. But, you know, just looking at this, it just doesn't look sustainable. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 10 green weekly candles in a row. So, yeah. And you know, you could argue, and I've drawn this so many times, still waiting for it to break. But there is, I mean, this is at the apex now. I mean, granted, it's only got 2 points there. But you could take that all the way back to here if you wanted and be like, we are running up against it. So we're either going to invalidate this rising compression or it's on. I mean, next week, it's probably got enough room. Next week, maybe the week after if we zoomed in. But it doesn't have much time left on it. So, yeah, we shall see. Right. Okay. We'll talk about everything else. Bitcoin. I mean, again, on the weekly, we talked about last week. Looks fine. Looks absolutely fine. Had that scare down to 74,000. Climb back up. It's looking nice. You know, I still wanted to make sure that this isn't a representation of this. You know, so I really want to, you know, until we just start meandering up, and that's going to worry me, but we break through. I didn't show you the news article here with CZ saying this cycle we get to 500,000. But that's all based on the United States stepping in. So, but yeah, I really want us to break the all-time high with strength, negating this, because right now the similarities are kind of crazy. You know, we had a strong move up, consolidation with a bit of a topping pattern, collapse back down, you know, back to the 50 for a few weeks, a few months, sorry, consolidate, and then a move back up. Funnily enough, exactly what's happened here. We didn't have a 50% correction, but it was like a 40% correction. And I just don't want to see it that side and then just fall away. So, yeah. But let's get on some lower time frames. And I'm actually going to cut straight to the 4 hour. Because that's what I want to focus on at the moment. So with the 4 hour, you know, this is what we were looking at before. Now I just want to go W formation, bottom pattern, whatever you want to do it, rise one, consolidation. So that's that consolidation, C1 consolidation period we had. Then we broke away from that consolidation period from the 50 EMA, vector candles breaking away from it. So strength as we broke away, rose up to it, and then we just consolidated again. And we're in this consolidation period. Consolidation 2. So it's looking, I know I showed you on the daily before, but on the 4 hour, it's really looking like actually we may well have one move up. And we don't know how long this consolidation period is going to last for. But what we want to see is a strong move away from the 50 EMA, ideally with some vector candles, and we start to build from that. So we could be at the start of it, absolutely. Maybe tomorrow we have a little bit of shenanigans, bring this down, but actually we start to see a real strong move up after the dust settles, and we move into this move up. Now, we don't know how far that's going to go, but we know we've got 2 hurdles. We've got the 100K psychological barrier, and then we've got 109,000, which is the previous all-time high. They're the 2 levels that we have to hit, and in my opinion, we have to get through. We've really got to get through both of those. I can accept we'll hit 102, maybe a slight pullback. Sorry, 100. Slight pullback and get through. But once we get to that all-time high, we start running out of steam. We start consolidating again. You know, if we're following the M formation, that then's going to just turn into potential move back down. And that's not what we want to be seeing, because then suddenly we've got the downturn to take in. On the 4 hour, obviously not on the daily. But that's something to consider. Now, some other areas that we might want to have a look at using the 4. Let's just get rid of all of this. Oops, don't know what I did there. So the other thing to have a look at we've got some EMA. So we've clustered the 10, the 20, and the 50 EMA. That's where we are at the moment on the 4 hour. Absolutely fine. Kind of the right side of the 50 at the moment. You could also even add that if we went down onto the 1 hour time frame, maybe there's a little W formation there. Fine. But let's have a look at some levels that we could fall to, and if we did, not to shit our pants at. And I think the first one is we want to have a look at this vector candle. Yeah. So that's the vector candle. For those that can't really see too well, the 50% is just under 90,000. Okay. So we've got that level there that we may need to have a look at. We've also got within that the 200 and the 800 EMA are pretty much sandwiching that vector candle level. So we've now got the tops and the bottoms marked out by EMAs. We've got the 50% retracement line within that vector candle at around about 90,000. So we're now talking around about 91 to 89,000 is an area of consideration. Well, funnily enough, get this back on the 12 hour. 91 and a half there to 89 and a half. I mean, give or take a few liquidation levels, but that is kind of, nice little fresh meat for any market makers to go for, because we know there's a lot of long liquidations in and around that level, which would also tie in as we go back with, price action could still break down here, reclaim this vector and still be considered, within a consolidation period. As long as we don't take out this level here, we can sadly fall all the way back down here and still be in that consolidation period after rise 2. So that's certainly an area that I would be looking at. And actually, if we just get rid of that and get rid of that, we just go onto the daily. There is the vector candle there, but you can also see the 50 EMA is right on that level, right on the 50% level of the vector candle on the 4 hour, but also that midway there. So there is a big chunk of vectors on the daily, fair enough. So there's other room for us to fall towards, which we're going to talk about again. And the other area I just want to mark then is going to be the 200 EMA on the daily. I'll mark it on the ray now. So when we go to the 4 hour, we can have a look at where that is. Why did that not show up? Oh, so it's all the way over there. Right, let's try that one again. So we can actually see it on the 4 hour. So dropping that onto the 4 hour, we kind of see actually now. So we've got that one vector to the top side that we talked about in around that 90,000 level. But there's another vector candle. It is all the way down at 86,000. It's this vector candle down here. 50% line is pretty much, it's at 86,000. That horizontal ray I did, which was a 200 EMA in the daily, is at 86.4. Pretty much sitting on top of each other. That's another level that I think we can get to. Now, that for me that's going to hurt to get down there. That's the kind of level that's going to knock our legs out from under us. It's going to take that fear and greed index right the way back down. But it's possible that we could actually get towards that, still within the confines of the consolidation area within the rise 2 or post rise 2. So it look a bit weird, I accept. However, it still fits the narrative within there. So they're the two levels I don't want it to get towards, but I think there are two levels there that we could. Now we break, let's just say we break 84,000, and unfortunately all bets are off. And I'm going to be talking about, we may even be retesting that 74,000 level, but I don't want to talk about that right now. 84 level is the hard line that we need to hold, the Gandalf line, whatever you want to call it. But I do think these two vectors here, the tie-in with EMAs, the tie-in with sort of 50% retracement and everything else that goes with it, liquidity zones, they're the things that I would be looking at for it to come towards. Now, as I say, we actually might just find that it continues to trudge along this path, and that's fine. We stay above 93,000 within that nice little zone there. Happy days. We've also got to bear in mind that we might get back up to 98. Don't get too excited at 98 because we could coming back down. We need to break 99, 100, if I'm honest, to know we're out of that zone. But that's where we sit on that. Are we going to cut to another chart, another time frame, and I can't remember why or what. Nope, can't remember. Okay, so that's Bitcoin. That's where I kind of think Bitcoin is. Mark, Tim's asked, are you going to the cuddle? And he's been waiting on tenterhooks now for at least 15 minutes. I'll be there, Tim. Don't you worry. I'll be there. Okay, let's have a look at some of the other ones. BitTensor, of course, BitTensor. What's that on the daily? Because we haven't really looked at it or anything else at the moment. And so, what can we say about BitTensor? Just looking from this chart here, the move that we made last week, the inverted head and shoulders, the W formation, whatever you want to do, again, similar to Bitcoin, we seem to have found a period of consolidation. And there's plenty of levels again on the way down in which we continue to consolidate, which we'd have to, still accept we could get down there whilst maintaining bullish structure. And I talked on Thursday about the 50 EMA. Now, back then, the 50 EMA was at 300. It's now at 310. That, to me, is a level I think that we probably will actually retest. Maybe by the time it gets there, we just actually take out this vector candle here from the blue vector. But I was really thinking back then we'd have another go at this candle, vector candle back here, just sort of pull it back, get some strength from it, and then look to climb back up on the next rise from that level. And in terms of where the daily sat, maybe I'm being a bit too pessimistic there, because we had this white line that would, honestly, I drew that on months ago at 355, wanted to hold above it, and we have generally held our own. We dropped down below it for one day, and we flew back up yesterday on it, and we're managing to sit on the daily here on the 200 EMA quite nicely. And actually, the daily candle is not vector. We're not seeing a large amount of volume coming in, but it's looking quite nice. I mean, I'd like it, before I called it a low test, to have a bit of a shorter body to the north, but generally there does seem to be a decent amount of buying pressure that's happened in and around that 355 level, defending it quite well. So barring any news that might correct it one other way, it's looking generally pretty good, BitTensor. The only thing I really want to see it, and it's a big ask, I know it is, I kind of want to see it above 500. And that's just because right now we're actually just making a lower high. 1, 2, 3, right now 4. And I don't want that. That's just too sad a face for me. I want the Harry happy face, and I want this one to get back up there. And so we're not still within that downtrend. And a lot of this action has been very good in terms of convincing ourselves that we're out of the downtrend. And then we're actually making our move back up. But you've got to remember, the fall in March for BitTensor was so aggressive and so sudden. We've not actually really, even though we've had such a sharp turnaround in recovery, we've not actually recovered our position of where we were 2 months ago. 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, we were at 400. We've not quite got there yet, And so, strong that it is, I just don't want to see this running out of steam and we just end up with, lower high after lower low. And yes, this one initially looked like this was going to be the start of a higher low. But unfortunately, obviously, this one didn't actually clear that. It did clear this one, but I would have preferred this turnaround to be higher there. Now, so it kind of negates this one being the first higher low, and we're going to have to rely on now wherever this one turns out to be for that to be the first stage. And we like to have a look at confirmation in the 3 there, don't we? Obviously a turnaround and then 2 moves from it. So where's my path? Why am I not find any of these anymore? Am I blind? Path, there we go. Yeah, so we'd want to see it make a bottom like that. That's what we want to see. And at the moment, we thought we were getting that. But this high wasn't quite high enough. So actually, this is going to be our first level. We want, this, wherever it happens, to be the confirmation. And then that to bust through this level. Then we can be sure that at least the downtrend is over. Hopefully it doesn't resume again. And we've got it. And it sounds like a big ask, another $150 on it, but actually, we've already put $200 on where the bottom was only a month ago. So it's perfectly reasonable that we might be able to see that. We've just got to keep working through it. But that's the kind of level I'm looking for there. Now let's go on some lower time frames. My wife's away at the moment. She's in Rome on a yoga retreat, so I've had to deal with both of the kids today. So I've done absolutely zero prep beforehand. I'm kind of looking at these a bit fresh, just getting my excuses in nice and early, obviously. But again, you know, a bit like with Bitcoin on the 4 hour, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm just going to get rid of this white line temporarily. But you know, we've got, you know, nice sort of, how is that possible that I could draw that? A nice channel just forming itself then, just nicely ranging through it. We've got the 50, the 10, and the 20 just tying knots in each other because we've just been able to have that range for so long. But we're building on the 800 EMA. 200 EMA is nicely below us as well. We're finding some. But for me, I mean, that 400 level is going to be key then, isn't it? I mean, it's 390 there. But let's just get 400, break out of this box, and a nice little move. But actually, talking about that level where if it loses it, I might start to think about sidestep. It's kind of at that 340 level. Maybe I need to take it a little bit lower, like 330. But that's where I'm seeing a sort of a break to the bottom of this. It's where I'd be having to look to get out. I don't want to necessarily wait for that level because then by then it's probably not worth it. So I'd, you know, be trigger fingered to just sort of step in and then maybe have to just cut losses if it turns around there. But not trying to be negative. I want to see this move. But again, nice little sort of pattern there. This one here, W formation. The W I like with the second side of the W higher than the first. Move up, rise 1, consolidation, and then a strong rise 2 up here. And then this is the consolidation. And then to really, we should be seeing, and don't always play out, one more rise. One more rise up before we consolidate. Probably see a bit of a pullback and then go again. Ethereum, I mean, it's just a meme at the moment, so I don't know many people are in it. If you are, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not looking good. This one is still in a downtrend. Doesn't seem to have any luck in trying to break it. And we're there. And as I said last week, Near's the same. A lot of them are the same. Link's the same. Ondo, I mean, Ondo's kind of ranging a little bit. But it's still on the lower end of that. Casper, so I've not been keeping up to speed with Casper. You know my thoughts on it, but I read on Discord that 10 BPS is now live. I don't know if it was a sell the news event, but we did see it peak, you know, last Friday, prior to it obviously going live, and then price started. We're not really seeing, I think it's actually dropped since it happened, but we are getting squeezed just in between all of those EMAs. So, you know, if that just happens, there's going to be some explosive move up or down. I'm not necessarily too sure. Mantis or Ohm is just continuing to die. This actually, something that's going to feature in the cuddle talk I'm going to speak about on Saturday. It's not going to go into too much, but it's not looking great. And it's the same with a lot of the alts. I mean, I suppose with Render and Solana, as I'm just going through some of them, at least they're sort of looking a bit more like BitTensor in terms of being able to hold their own and they're not giving back the gains that they made. I appreciate this is messy chart, it doesn't necessarily matter, I'm not going to actually chart it. But you can see that they've had that move up and then they've been able to hold it, whereas Near kind of giving most of it back. Link kind of giving most of it back. Ethereum. Okay, actually. I mean, if you get Ethereum, did actually get down to nearly 1,300. So maybe I'm being a bit harsh on that one. Virtue, we talked about this last week. I mean, okay, it's had a pullback now, but it had a hell of a rise. Matter of fact, pulled back to the 50 EMA, which is kind of where we said we thought it might end up getting to. I think we said it on the daily, though, to be fair, which is down at $1, which I think is still potentially on the cards, is being held up at the moment there. But yeah, great move up from Virtue. And then XRP just actually gone back to just being a bit of a stable coin since its move up in December. Ranging, yeah, but still managed to stay up there. Altcoin, I mean, again, looking good. And we talked about this on Thursday. Move up, nice pullbacks. This one, as we said, it might do 20 EMA. Hopefully some sort of recovery from that one. But even the 50 EMA down at 85, still a fairly decent recovery from 20 cents. Trump is, yeah. So last week someone said to me it was about the dinners. and that's why it moved up. Well, it looks like whoever bought those has sold. SPX, another little ranging one. So, it's a meme coin. I don't think memes are right at the moment. Obviously, there are some that are, but it's not looking how Tau does in terms of not giving back its gains. This one, the gains it's made, it has given back a little bit. This one, it's a funding rate. Just every time I try to short it, I just end up not making money because the funding rate's too much because everyone's shorting this thing. Hence where the price is going. Tau Nu doing all right, but yeah, not great. Okay. Anything else really to have a look at? And things. I mean, Nasdaq. It's obviously had the tariff scare in April. It's actually made a fairly decent recovery from that one. I think we need to still see it, climb and maintain above that 20,000 level. But I don't think this last 2-day pullback is anything necessarily to worry about. Just with that strong move up, 50 EMA there. Maybe we get down as low as that before a move. Gold, I mean, just ripping it. And it's funny because I still find it difficult to accept, when gold maxis is trying to give Bitcoin maxis a bit of crap because, gold's done all right. But in the last 8 years, Bitcoin's gone from 3,000 to 100,000. And, gold's had its run in the last, let's see, what's 8 years ago? It's 3x'd. So Bitcoin's 30x'd. And gold's 3x. There's no comparison in where it is. And gold is doing well. We are in uncertain times. It is a reflection of how uncertain the market is. And I mentioned at the beginning, tariffs are really spooking everyone. That it doesn't look like it's resolving itself anytime soon. And so the flight to safety with gold, making absolute sense with where that's going. And this is kind of looking like Bitcoin dominance in terms of just green after green after green. Had a little bit of pullback, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not this week, next week, we see a new all-time high. Given how strong this week's candle is going, maybe it does get there. 3,500 it needs to get to, but looking good. Stocks and all of that. Nvidia, everyone got a bit excited about Nvidia because they thought that they were going to consider to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet, but no one's actually been able to find anyone on Nvidia that said that. So just take that down as crypto hopium. And that's kind of it, I think. In terms of portfolios, I haven't actually rebalanced the figures. They're going to be roughly the same. Things might have moved around a little bit just with sort of where the prices are gone. But you can kind of see Bitcoin and Tau are level pegged. The rest of I'm just trying to do it. It's about 30% is the rest of my altcoin portfolio, SPX, Link, Ondo, and Near, and then a little bit of cash on the side. And then, the business one is still where the business one sits. I think that's probably going to be it. It's actually almost an hour. Can't believe I managed to stretch it out as long as we did there. We've got the cuddle on Saturday, so hopefully I'll get to see most of you there. I'm not sure when my talk is. It's not going to be a particularly long one, 20-30 minutes max, I should think, he says. Obviously going to be much longer than that now. But hopefully interesting. I'm sure there's going to be lots of conversation on detail, subnet, alpha, and that's going to be hard for me to take it in because I probably need to do a bit of reading up on that beforehand. But they're always good. I just love catching up with everyone at them. So hopefully see some of you there. Feel free to bend my ear. And depending on how serious a response you want, you probably want to catch me before I have too many beers. But other than that, thanks everyone for tuning in. Any questions, as always, just tag me. I will try and respond as best and as quickly as I can. I do believe there is a trading pub on Thursday. I've not been told otherwise, so assume that there is 1 o'clock on Thursday. Failing that, it's going to be plenty of Simon and I chatting on Saturday. See you all there. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Watch out for FOMC tomorrow. Don't forget that as well. And I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers now.